Les Misérables is the longest running musical in the West End. Not only in the West End, in the whole world. But why? Why is this musical so popular? In this video, I'm going to tell you 5 things that you need to know before you go and check it out. And pay attention to number 4 so you don't make the same mistake that I did. The first thing to know about Les Mis is that it's based on a very sad story and a novel by Victor Hugo. It is set in 19th century France, and 19th century France wasn't a happy place. A lot of ordinary people faced a lot of struggles, poverty, bad working conditions, and generally it wasn't a happy time to be alive. Les Mis is a serious piece of musical theater, if I can say like that, because there is a lot of these big themes around law, around inequalities, injustices, different paths and destinies that people have, and also what is morally right and wrong, and there's a lot of heavy emotions in this show. The novel written by Victor Hugo is 1400 pages long, and it is widely considered as one of the best pieces of literature from the 19th century. So if you know this story or you like this novel, seeing it on stage come to life is pretty spectacular, and it's under 3 hours long. So it's gonna definitely take you less time to watch this compared to reading the novel. The storyline follows Jean Valjean, who is an ex-convict and he's broken his parole and is on the run, and Javert, who is a policeman and the person who was the guard while he was imprisoned, is chasing him so he can captivate him. But while this is the story in its simplest form, there are so many interesting characters that intersect with Jean Valjean's storyline and how they impact him and he impacts their lives. It is a story about much more than him. It is a story about so many different ordinary people in France during this time, and ultimately about fighting for something that you believe in. So with all this in mind, Les Mis is a very engaging but emotionally taxing story. So I think if you're going to see it, just be ready for it, and maybe it is more suited for slightly more serious audiences. The second thing that you need to know about Les Mis is that even if you go to the show thinking that you don't know any of the songs, you will probably know at least 1 or 2 of them, because the music in this musical is incredible and it is so well established and well known beyond the musical theater that you will 100% know the songs such as I Dreamed the Dream, On My Own, Do You Hear the People Sing, and these are just some of the numbers that are so popular and acclaimed that it will already connect you to the musical to the next level. So seeing some of these numbers live, delivered on stage by some of the most talented actors, hits differently. They will go straight through your heart, and then you will feel these songs like never before. While the songs that I just mentioned are some of the most wildly acclaimed numbers from this musical, there are plenty of other ones that you will fall in love with, such as Empty Chairs and Empty Tables. It is a very heartfelt ballad about losing comrades, and honestly it's a song that leaves no dry eye in the room. Everyone is crying, you can hear the sniffles behind you. It is such a heartfelt moment in the show. Besides that, there are some really fun numbers, such as At the End of the Day. It is a song that is about factory workers, and it's not a happy song, but just the beat of the song and kind of the way that it's delivered is really engaging. And also One Day More is the ultimate song for fighting for better tomorrow, and that's the way that the first act ends, and it leaves you really with that sense of something big coming in the second act, which definitely happens. So from that perspective, you are in for a treat to hear some of the most magical musical theater numbers, and also these are really emotional songs that will make you resonate with a lot that's happening on stage. So prepare some tissues to have on hand in case you start crying. The third thing to know is that Les Mis has had a bit of a revamp a few years ago, and the version that is currently in the West End is the new version. So maybe if you've seen this show a few years back, like myself, you remember the revolve, or like the stage that is actually turning around, and you can see a lot of things on stage from a few different perspectives. And the biggest thing that the new production has dropped is this element of stage and set turning. And the creators of the new production are saying that they wanted to adapt this well-established classic for new audiences and add additional layer and element to it to make sure that it stands the test of time like it did so far. So if you're seeing Les Mis for the first time, this will be the production that will equally amaze you, because the set is elaborate and it has a lot of different characteristics compared to the old version. I particularly enjoyed the set during the times when they're going through the city, and there are quite a lot of buildings that they kind of bring out, and then there are people who are in the balconies, and this really adds that like 3D spatial element to it. And one thing that wasn't present in the previous production is these amazing paintings that are projected at the back of the stage, and these are actually Victor Hugo's paintings, because he was also a painter. So this guy was extremely talented. The paintings are these like moody landscapes, and they're very muddy, and just like the colors are very captivating. setting. So I think it matches the mood of the show very, very well. When it comes to the whole revolving stage and the lack of that, again, if you haven't seen the previous production, you won't know what you've missed. I think that they have definitely compensated for it with some other elaborate elements within the set. From my personal perspective, I do feel that that revolving element of the stage was adding a lot of dynamic, because sometimes in the new production you get actors who are like walking up and down the stage as if they're like kind of walking through different routes, but this is the same route. It gets a little bit repetitive, but this is compensated with some amazing effects, especially for example when Javert is jumping off the bridge. There is this amazing scene that for a moment you are not really sure what happened, because they kind of remove the bridge and then they lift Javert up, and it's just simulated how he's like falling. This was one of the most memorable optical illusions that I witnessed. Overall, the new production of Les Miz is bringing the same energy and enthusiasm and the gravitas to this musical. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this new version is any less good than the previous one. It's just there are these few elements that are slightly different, and then they make just dynamic, or at least like blocking on stage, different to how it was, because I feel like that they solved quite a lot of issues with that revolving stage before. It is just, I think, an adjustment for anyone who has seen Les Mis before, but if you're seeing Les Mis for the first time, I think you will be equally impressed by this show. So we got to the fourth thing when it comes to seeing Les Mis at the Sondheim Theatre in London, and that is to do with tickets and seats and seat view, which I think I made a mistake about. So I was thinking, because I've seen Les Mis before, I am good to go and sit at the cheaper seat, and I also didn't go for the cheapest. I went for the £40 seats, which were on the side of the Grand Circle. This is the most upper part of the theater, so basically I knew that it's gonna be a bit steep, and also the seat was marked as restricted because it is a little bit on the side. But this was not the only seat that was marked as restricted. It's the whole two areas on the sides of Grand Circle that were restricted, and I am going to shows quite a lot, and I know that sometimes these seats aren't that restricted because I wasn't at the very end of the row. However, when it comes to this one, it was actually severely restricted, and it impacted my enjoyment of the show, because there are quite a lot of scenes that happen at the very front of the stage, and also I was on the left side, so it really cut off quite a lot of action that was happening there, and I kind of wasn't ready for it. So I was pretty disappointed with my seat, and I wasn't the only one, because also the people in front rows before me were leaning forward because they couldn't see, and then you have the whole host of people leaning forward because they just cannot see well enough from these seats. And I appreciate that these are marked as restricted seats, but this would be my recommendation to you. So if you're going to see Les Mis for the first time, and even for the second time, I think you should definitely spend a little bit more money and get seats that are centered. Doesn't matter which level, but just don't go for the side seats, because I think you will really struggle to enjoy the show if you go for those seats. I have noticed that for Les Mis, the tickets are a bit pricier maybe than for other shows, or like the seats where you can expect to get the decent view are around like £50. So that's worth bearing in mind, but I think it's because it's such a big classic and the theater isn't that big. That is probably the reason why these seats are that expensive. And also I haven't really seen Les Mis being too often on offer, and maybe it's just the time of the year when I went. I feel that when it comes to ticketing and seating and all of that, it takes a little bit more to find the right seat for the right price. So I would recommend you go and check the seat view on Seat Plan, or also on the website of Les Mis. I think they also have the seat view. Basically just make sure to do as much research as possible about the seat, so you don't end up in the same situation like I did, because it is a beautiful show and it is a long show, and you do want to be able to see properly. If you are going for any type of restricted seats, I honestly don't think you should, because there are also some elements of the production that happen at like the upper part of the stage, so either people on the balcony or people at the barricade. And if you are sitting, for example, at the very back of the stalls and you have the dress circle cutting off that part of the stage, you won't enjoy it. So I really feel that this is a show where probably you should spend a little bit more money so you can enjoy it in its full glory, rather than trying to go for a cheap ticket and then not see a third of it. The fifth thing to know about seeing Les Mis is that if you go and see this musical, you're witnessing part of musical theater legacy in London and in the whole world, because this is one of the most acclaimed shows. It's been translated and performed in so many different countries around the world, toured around the world. So it's impressive to see how this story has really managed to transcend the time, starting in the 19th century all the way to being adapted into musical in the 20th century, and now now, the 21st century, having so many people coming to see it, it is really incredible, and it just shows how powerful and universal certain themes are that this musical is discussing. You will guaranteed cry and laugh and also find a lot of your personal journey within it in one way or the other, and it's going to inspire you to think differently. So this is truly one of the greatest and most acclaimed pieces of musical theater, and there's so much history behind it that going to see it, you are definitely taking part in something special. And if you need to pick one show in London that will truly represent musical theater in a nutshell, then it's probably this one. While all these things make Les Mis a must-see show in London, I have to admit that when it comes to my favorite musicals and soundtracks that I listen all the time, Les Mis isn't one of them. But in this video, I'm telling you which 5 shows those are, so you should check that one out.